Okay. Here is my extemporaneous attempt to explain to you the inverted world. Inverted world. This is the true nature of the universe, the inverted world. Okay? That means Earth as you know it, as you've learned to understand Earth, even from a little toddler in grammar school, you have been taught wrong. Earth is not a planet. Okay? Earth does not spin. There is no spin to the Earth. Regardless of what you've been told a lie. It's not true. There is no spin to Earth. Earth is inverted. What does that mean, inverted? Well, that means that the surface of the Earth on which you stand on curves upward. So if this is you, you are standing on the inside surface of the Earth. This is called concave, okay? The concave side of Earth, which means Earth is not solid. Earth is hollow. However, it's not hollow in the way in which the more popular version of the hollow Earth theory is. Earth is a shell. It's just a shell. Okay? It's not solid and it's just a shell. The shell, I'm not sure the thickness, but it's not very thick, I would imagine. Because firstly, man has not even drilled more than 10 miles beneath the surface of the Earth. Did you know that? And yet they can speculate. All their so-called knowledge of the center of the Earth and the core is all based on speculation. That, let me get a circle here. A nice circle for you guys. Oh, not too nice, actually. Oh. That, a smaller circle. That means the Earth contains the entire universe, which means that everything that we know, everything that we've been taught about the universe is actually false. There's a vast scale difference and a vast distance difference than what we've been taught, because we know that Earth is 8,000 miles wide, right? But I'm saying the water, the oceans are on the inside. The continents are on the inside of the Earth. Okay? So, what's up in the center? Well, in the center is the celestial sphere. There's a sphere up in the middle of the Earth. And I'm drawing these dots to signify stars. All the stars are very tiny, okay? Stars are created by a term called sonoluminescence. Sonoluminescence, which is basically nuclear fusion, but at a very small scale. It can be created in a laboratory, in a jar, in a beaker, not a jar, but a glass beaker in water. Okay, so basically, in this beaker, when you are penetrating sound effects, it's creating this little spark of light inside the liquid, inside a beaker. So sonoluminescence is the idea of bombarding the center of this liquid with sound. and it creates a little burst, a little bubble of light, okay? Sometimes you'll see actually what the scientists will tell you, they call it, you'll see like a little surrounding arc that surrounds some of the stars. They call it bow shock. And they'll tell you it's, it's light years wide or whatever. No, it's very small, it's very tiny. This outside surface is actually the bubble of the stars inside the liquid. Now, inside the celestial sphere, this is hollow too. And there's a celestial ocean, okay, which actually verifies and validates what we read in Genesis chapter 1, where there are two levels of water. The waters above and the waters below. And there was a firmament, which was created. This is a hard surface, and I believe it's created out of glass. Okay, this is the initial firmament. Later, after the flood, there's a secondary firmament that was created. But inside this chamber here, it's hollow, and there's sound being reverberated from the center. And what is in the center, get a straight edge here, is, well, I'll just do by hand, an octahedron, okay, which is basically two pyramids turned on each other, like that, okay? There's an octahedron in the center of heaven, which is in the center of the earth. The book of Job, chapter 38, very significant chapter. Verse 33 says that the ordinances of heaven take dominion of inside the earth. Heaven is inside the earth. Heaven is inside the earth. What's also inside the earth? Let's go back a little bit. Genesis chapter 1, okay? At the apex of this magnetically charged, magnetically powered octahedron, if you got the positive side here and the negative side here, is the apex where it's generating the source of the light. This is where the light is originating from. Notice also, too, there are four corners at the base of this octahedron. Okay, that is what is referred to in the Bible as the four corners of the earth. Okay? Four corners of the earth. Notice also, too, here, there's a magnetic equilibrium. At the center. This is where the equator is. Okay, so basically you can take this 0 degrees latitude, and that's where your equator is. That's why also geostationary satellites can hover perfectly. Another thing too about Earth, there is no spin. I told you about that on the first page here, but no spin. So the spin is happening inside the Earth. Why is it happening? Because of magnetic propulsion and the way magnets work, okay? If you place a bar magnet inside a glass beaker, okay, and you put that on top of an exciter that excites the plasma, okay? You put this bar magnet inside this beaker, okay? It's had a positive and negative pole to it, right? But these field lines are returning upon each other. Draw this a little bit better here. So these field lines are returning like that, okay? So what that does basically is that it creates a spin, a lateral spin like that. Spin. Magnets create plasma spin inside glass. That's what's happening in the earth, okay? There's glass, firstly, in this celestial sphere, firmament, and there's glass here too in the, let me get a bigger circle here, in the glass that was formed after the flood. No, that's too big. How about this ashtray? That's a good one. Try that. Okay. There is a glass firmament at the top of the atmosphere, which is roughly 62 miles high. 62 miles. Glass. That was created after the flood. Okay, let's back up a little bit, okay? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form, which was meaning basically that earth in that instance meant land. So the land was not seen, okay? It was without form. And darkness moved over the face of the deep. Well, yeah, so there was already a spin happening. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, okay? So, and then let there be light, okay? Then the light flicked on, okay? So the light inside the sphere is being refracted, because refracted means it's being bent, okay? Light is being bent, especially inside a curve. It's going to curve. Light is going to curve because of the refraction. So at the top of this apex of this pyramid, this light is bending over like that, because initially it's shooting out straight, vertically, but it's bending around like that, okay? So the light and the Spirit of God is moving, okay, magnetically charged. So we're spinning already. We're spinning in this lateral motion continually. This is happening every 24 hours, okay? And then day 2, there was a firmament that was created. So this light actually expanded and created this firmament. There were elements that were already created. Light was not the initial element, okay? In the beginning is not saying before there were any elements whatsoever, okay? This was already here. This was before the beginning. This was built. This is called the foundations of the earth. Go back to Job chapter 38, verses 1 through 4. It describes a geometric structure when describing the foundations of the earth. And it's also a pyramidal structure, because it talks about the cornerstone, and it talks about being laid with measures. Okay? That's what's going on, okay? So, day 2, you got this firmament that was created, and it's separated. The heat expanded into 2 levels. So this earth expanded, okay? The shell got thinner when it expanded. The earth shell got thinner. And so you have waters above and waters below, okay? Very simple. So we already have light inside the inner celestial sphere, inside heaven. Now there was going to be light that was being created in the outer shell of the universe, and that was the sun, okay? The sun and the moon, okay? They're moving this way, okay? However, what you've learned about the sun is wrong. I've seen the sun from a vision that I had back in 2003. And I was up here in a raft. I was on the waters here, and I was looking at the back of the sun. And the back of the sun was actually dark. It was flat basically. And what I noticed, that there were these light rays that were hitting. Here, I'll draw it bigger over here basically, but if you're looking at the sun, it's a round dark disk, and it had a white ring around it, the light, okay? And they had these light rays that were hitting the back of the sun, and they were all parallel like that, and they were going straight across the equator of the sun, or the diameter of the sun. I don't say equator because I don't think it's a sphere. It's either bowl-shaped or it's flat. I'm not really sure. But since I'm talking about the sun having a dark side, I'm also saying that it's not an omnidirectional light. I'm saying it's a direct light, like a flashlight. Sun is a direct light, contrary to what you've learned, which means it casts a shadow. It casts a terminator line where the light is divided from the darkness, okay? And because it's inside the curve here, and the light is being bent, it's being refracted like that, okay? It will eventually have this terminator line on the earth, which divides the light from the darkness, okay? This is a direct light. It's very important to understand that. Now also, when the light bends too much to hit the earth, it actually moves around and it turns around back in towards itself and it hits the moon, okay? That's also why this is the real explanation of lunar eclipses. It's not the shadow of the earth that's covering the moon. It's actually, there's like a little area of light that's like a void where the sunlight cannot reach the moon. And when that moon enters in that little cone-shaped area of light, funnel-shaped area of light, the moon gets obfuscated, okay? So, you have the sun and the moon. They're moving around the inside of the earth. The planets are there too. Earth is not a planet. Remember I told you that, right? Earth is not a planet. Planets are little spheres that orbit around the inside of the earth. And I believe there are 7 of them because I don't think Pluto's a planet either. So that's 9 minus Earth and Pluto. So you got 7 planets that are also moving. There's an ecliptic here, okay? In Job chapter 38, it calls the ecliptic the day spring. Okay, so they're moving around like that, okay? Okay, now during the flood, now pretend this line isn't here yet, okay? It says that the windows of heaven were opened. So the windows, this glass firmament, it broke apart, okay? And water gushed forth down to the lower ocean, the lower level of water. So it flooded. It went over the continents, over every continent, okay? And it also expanded the earth more, okay? As well as the water that came down, sand also came down, silica. And it came down here, and that's how we get this glass bound. It fused together in the ionosphere, where there's a lot of electromagnetic activity. So there's a glass sky here, okay? It's 62 miles high. Attached to that glass sky is also a mantle of ice. Going back to Job 38, verse 22, verse 29, it's called the hoary frost of heaven. Hoary frost of heaven. Hoary frost of heaven. Now the word hoary frost in Hebrew actually connotates that word with the image of a bowl or a basin. So basically you're thinking this hoary frost is attached to a bowl or a basin-like structure, okay? Or a womb, out of whose womb came the ice. Job 38. Or it's also called the treasures of the hail. Treasures of the hail. Treasures as if, meaning that they are hidden. We don't understand that there's a layer of glass and a layer of ice connected to the glass up in the sky. And every so often, this glass, or not the glass, but the ice will fall down. And they call those, they have a fancy word for it, they call them megacriometeors. Ice chunks. Ice chunks. Mega. Cryo. Meteor. It's a big mystery, the origin of where these megacriometeors are coming from, because some weigh as much as 1,500 pounds, and they have been falling for centuries, so prior to the invention of aviation. Okay, so they're not falling from airplanes. It's not airplane discharge from the lavatories, because that ice is actually dyed blue. And when that does fall to the ground, you notice the difference. And they're not as big either. This is why scientists can't tell you where the ice is coming from, because they do not accept this model of the universe, this accurate model of the universe. Everything is tiny, okay? Everything is small. There's plenty of physical evidence for the fact that there is glass in the sky. Okay? There's tektites. Scientists consider tektites a mystery. They don't know where tektites came from, whether it came from extraterrestrial origins or terrestrial origins. They can't make up their mind. It has no cosmic ray exposure. So basically it's not coming from above the atmosphere, because the atmosphere, hey, guess what? It blocks out cosmic rays. Well, why does it block out cosmic rays in the first place? Because glass blocks out cosmic rays. That's why. Okay. And it's not they can't figure out either where it can't, and it doesn't come from the ground either, basically, because there's many holes in that theory. There's no meteor craters where these tektites have fallen. Tektites are, let me explain tektites to you. They're molten, it's basically molten glass. Some are in the form of like dumbbells, like that. Some are in the form of buttons, like that. Well, what they're showing is they're showing aerodynamics in their shapes, like they were flying through the air at a high velocity, and they were also molten. Aerodynamic shape. But it's a mystery. To them, to me it's not a mystery. It's very simple where they came from. Fusion crust on meteorites. Fusion crust. One of the main features on meteorites, and the way to detect whether a rock is a meteorite or if it's just a terrestrial rock, is that it's covered with a glass coating, about 1 millimeter thick. It's burnt glass. Burnt glass coating of a meteorite, okay? If you peel away that coating, you'll see the rock beneath. And the very interesting thing is that the chemical makeup of the rock is different than the fusion crust. It's like they came from two different origins, and they did. They'll give you the conventional explanation that they call it ablation, where basically the rock is going at a very high speed and it's burning through the atmosphere, and they're saying that the glass from the inside of the rock is formulating and encapsulating the rock with this burnt glass. Well, that's not true. First of all, there's no in-between layer of like a glass rock composite. It's two different distinct surfaces. It's two different distinct materials, okay? Just like if you dip something in a hot wax or something, you dipped a rock in a hot wax, and it gets coated like that. That's exactly what's happening, because above in the sky, when a meteor is actually coming through the atmosphere, it's skidding across the glass at a very high speed, and it generates enough friction because there's a little air even above the glass. It's a very minute amount of air which actually creates friction, and it actually starts to melt through the glass, okay? And then it gets covered, it gets encapsulated with fusion crust, and then the little tektites drip off like that, okay? Another reason why there's glass in the sky, when the meteor does enter through the atmosphere, excuse me, there's a thing called triboluminescence. Triboluminescence. Which is basically when you rub two surfaces together, especially if one of them is quartz or silicon dioxide, which is glass, against another surface like that, it will light it will create light. It creates light. So sometimes at nighttime, when a meteor crashes through the glass sky, it will create triboluminescence and will light up the entire sky just as if it were daylight. I'm sure you've seen some of that. You've seen that before, or video footage of that, or they've shown you that before, okay? Move on over here, another piece of evidence that there's glass in the sky. Auroras borealis, okay, or auroras australis, however you say that. Auroras are a direct result of electrons being shot at glass, at an obstacle. Scientists will compare the auroras to an old CRT TV tube, basically, with the electron gun in the back here, okay? And the electron gun is shooting these electrons. And there's phosphorus coated onto this glass here. When the electrons hit the glass, it causes the glow. That's really what's happening here, basically. The sun is shooting the electrons and it's hitting the glass. And at the higher latitudes, it's creating the glow. You see the glow there. I'm not really sure why it's happening at the higher latitudinal regions, but maybe you guys can tell me that. Okay, so auroras are created because of glass. Ozone generation. Ozone generation. You could smell the glass in the sky, okay? After a thunderstorm, you smell that fresh scent that you smell. That's the same scent that's created in air ionizers, basically, where you have a glass plate in the middle, okay, or inside. And so the glass plate, the O2 molecules, are creating O3 molecules, and it's distributing off this fresh scent. So basically they have the oxygen molecules after a thunderstorm electromagnetically creating O3. So you have the O3 molecules being created because the electromagnetic activity after a thunderstorm is creating the ozone. Same thing, because there's glass in the sky. That's what's happening there, okay? Another reason that we have glass in the sky is because, to draw a little cross section here, here's the earth, here's the water, whatever, here's the clouds in the sky. A thunderstorm, you have the lightning beneath the clouds, right? But you also have upper atmospheric lightning. Upper atmospheric lightning. They call those sprites. Sprites. So in here you have these. It's kind of like a funnel shape here, but it has a top to the sprites. Basically, it gives off this disc-like plasma discharge, and they call those elves. And the altitude of the elves is 62 miles high, or 100 kilometers. That's how we know the height of the glass ceiling. Same thing with auroras. They say the bottom, the lowest part of the aurora, basically, is at 62 miles, 100 kilometers. So that's where we get the 62 miles from. Another reason why there's glass in the sky is because glass blocks ultraviolet light. And so does our atmosphere. Coincidence? I don't think so. There's also the greenhouse effect, okay? We have a literal glass ceiling, just like in a greenhouse. This is true. A big reason why there's glass in the sky is because rainbows, like I told you before, because the sun is a direct light, and it's not an omnidirectional light. It has an edge to it. It has a rim, okay? So that sunlight that's being diffused through this glass is creating a spectrum. That's where the division of the white light comes from, just like in a prism, as if The white light is shining through a glass prism. So basically, the light that we see coming down from the sky is already filtered through the glass. And that glass, filtered light, is projected onto reflective water vapor. Or clouds. That's all it is. The clouds are not the source of the rainbow, folks. Clouds are only the surface of projection. Same thing with a garden hose. If you're holding a garden hose, okay? You're spraying out the spray. That's not the origin of the rainbow. The reflective water is just the surface of projection. Surface of projection. Surface of projection. Now you can understand why the rainbow is arced. It has nothing to do with any kind of weird explanation that they tell you. The rainbow is arced because it's just mimicking the arc of the sun. It's mimicking the edge of the sun. If you shine sunlight through a square, like if you're inside a room and there's a square window and there's water vapor inside the room, you're going to get a square. You're going to get a straight edge rainbow. That's all it is. Same thing, you can shine a flashlight. Some flashlights you can actually create a rainbow. If you shine a flashlight onto a white piece of paper in a dark room, you can create a rainbow on paper. Because it's just mimicking the rim of the light source. That's all it is. That's also why the inside of rainbows are brighter than the outside, because that's where the sun is. The sun, it's the projection of the sun, of the light of the sun. This is the true reason why rainbows happen. And now you can understand, okay, well, this glass diffused light is projecting all the colors of the rainbow onto clouds. It can also colorize the sky, right? In the morning time, you'll see the nice red clouds at the horizon. It's filtered. It's glass-filtered light. You're getting the red end of the spectrum. At the moon, the moon at the horizon, when you see the moon rise, okay? Sometimes the moon is orange. It's because it's being gelled by the glass-filtered light. If the moon is up in the middle of the sky, it looks more blue. Well, it's being gelled too. Now you can understand stellar spectroscopy. It's a farce. Scientists will tell you that they can identify what stars are made of and what distance they are going, or what direction they are going, based upon their color, based upon their color shift. Well, that's not true, because the stars up in the middle of the sky are being gelled by the glass sky. So if you see a redshift star, well, they'll say, okay, look, it's moving away from us because the red end of the spectrum is a longer wavelength, and it's the Doppler effect, and blah blah blah, baloney, baloney, baloney. That's not true. Even Hubble admitted. Carl Hubble, is that his first name? I don't know. He said the redshift was of an unknown origin. They don't tell you that, do they? And you can't see the redshift of stars. You can't see the color shifts of stars from above the atmosphere. Why? Because it's just simply glass, guys. It's just simply glass. Glass is coloring the sky. This glass is also found in Egypt. Pieces of it fell down in the Libyan desert. They call it Libyan desert glass. Another mystery. Where did this come from? Where did this glass come from? It's yellow. It has the highest silica content of natural silica in the world, 98%. concave. There's no bubbles in it when it was formed. It's very dense. It's very, I don't know. There's no bubbles in it basically. So basically, and it melted quickly, and it also cooled quickly. Okay. It didn't come from the surrounding sand, because when you try to do that to the surrounding sand, first of all, you're not going to get this high of a silica content. And secondly, you're going to have these little air pockets and bubbles in the glass. This Libyan desert glass, it's a mystery to them. They don't know where it came from. Well, because they don't understand that there's a layer of glass in the sky, 62 miles high. And probably what happened was very simple. It's a very simple explanation. A meteor probably came crashing through the glass sky again. Here's Earth, here's the glass sky. Okay, this meteor, or a couple meters or whatever, it crashed through, it melted through, got encapsulated with fusion crust, had some tektites, well, maybe not. Maybe it wasn't tektites because it was hot enough. Maybe it slammed in at a higher angle like that, so it didn't really have the chance to melt or to melt the glass, and maybe just like crashed through, just like a ball crashes through a window basically. And so it created a hole in this glass, and these chunks of glass, this yellow glass, fell down to the earth, because they can't find any meteor craters in the Libya desert where this glass has fallen. Let's say this is the Libyan desert. This is where the glass fell. This is a big oval array. There's no meteor craters there. Well, if you understand physics and velocity, this meteor is going very fast, okay? So it's going to fall very far away from where the glass fell, because the glass is not moving, okay? So the glass falls here, the meteor falls there. Very simple explanation. Okay, now let's talk about the ice. Oh, I did talk about the ice a little bit. The ice that's attached to this glass sky formulated by moisture and because it's cold up there. And it generated this thick mantle of ice. So if this is Earth, and this is the glass sky, there's also a layer of ice that's attached to the glass. Every so often this glass falls, or this ice falls down. Usually probably due to man-made generated heat that's created in metropolitan areas through exhaust fumes or whatever. That's why they spray the skies with contrails. They're not chemtrails, they're contrails. They want to block the heat, the man-made exhaust fumes, from reaching the top of the glass sky. They don't want these ice chunks falling down. So now they'll spray the skies with this webbing, because the exhaust fumes will create heat. Megacryate meteors are, like I said before, they're a mystery. They don't know where they're coming from. I even called Dr. I use that term loosely, Dr. David Travis, who studies these, and I told him where they're coming from. They're coming from the top of the glass sky. I gave him much evidence that there is a glass sky, and he's like, oh no, well the atmosphere's been so thoroughly studied over the years. Well, no, it's just that you haven't been informed, because the powers that be didn't really tell you what's really going on. They know about this. This is the true form of the world. Okay, let's go back to what's going to happen prophetically based on what happened in the past. Because everything is moving electromagnetically, gravity is, for the most part, a fictitious force. It has nothing to do with gravity. It's all electromagnetism, basically. They can stop. The celestial orbs can stop in the sky if there is an abeyance, if there's a halting of the electromagnetism. And that's what happened before 3,500 years ago. There's legends all over the world that talk about a mysterious time where there was like a double day in history, or a double night, or a double night. It's recorded in Egypt, it's recorded in North America by Indians, South America, Central America, China. You can just Google geocentricity and Joshua's long day, and it's also mentioned in the Bible, like I said before, Joshua chapter 10. Joshua chapter 10. In Joshua chapter 10, let me get it for you here. It notes that Joshua commanded the sun to stop and the moon to stay. Evidently, so he wanted to have more daylight to finish his battle, okay? Joshua chapter 10. Okay. So basically it says, "Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon the enemies." Okay, so it's recorded in the Bible, and it's also recorded in various countries throughout the world. I would say this actually definitely did happen. And it can't happen if the world is spinning, like I told you before in other videos. If you have a theoretical universe where the Earth is a convex spinning planet, and the sun actually literally stopped in the sky, which it was already been testified by many different people, theoretically you would have to conclude that the Earth would have to stop spinning. And if that actually happened, if the Earth was spinning in the first place, there would be a major whiplash of all the oceans covering continents. That's not how it happened. The sun didn't stop because the Earth stopped, because the Earth doesn't spin in the first place. The sun stopped because the sun was actually moving inside the Earth, and it stopped due to an absence of electromagnetism. So, going back to Joshua chapter 10, the verse before that, it says, "And it came to pass, as they fled from before Israel, and were in the going down to Beth Horon, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Azekah, and they died. There were more which died with hailstones than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword." So hailstone and sun stop, okay? If the sun stops, hail falls. There is the connection. If the sun stops, hail falls. If the sun stops again, you can conclude that it's very likely that hail will fall again. Now, let's look at some of the verses in the Bible where it talks about hail falling, okay? Go to Isaiah chapter 28. Isaiah 28. "Judgment also will I lay to the line, and righteousness to the plummet, and the hail shall sweep away the refuge of lies." There's a lot of lies, scientifically speaking, that so-called scientific men have told you. Wouldn't you conclude that? As a matter of fact, if we go back to chapter 24, let's see if I can find this real quick. Let me see if first one, verse 1. It says, Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. Turn it upside down. Well, actually, that's not the verse I wanted to look for. I don't know where it is, but basically, let me turn this off. I'll get it. I'll be right back. Okay, it was verse 29:16. Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the things framed say of him that framed it, he hath no understanding? So basically, man has turned things upside down. Man has turned the world, the earth, the universe, inside out and upside down. Okay, going back to hail falling. Okay, we got Isaiah 28. Isaiah 28. Isaiah 34. It says, the heaven shall Verse 4, the heaven shall be dissolved. Well, what gets dissolved? Ice gets dissolved. And they shall be rolled together as a scroll. So now you have a scientific explanation of this seemingly arcane and ridiculed verse. You actually have a platform in which the ice can roll together like a scroll. If the sun stops, it's going to melt all this ice. It's going to roll together like a scroll, or roll apart like a scroll. Can't take some of the words in the Bible translated accurately. So basically, this ice is going to be falling down. Also talks about in Isaiah 34 as falling fig from a fig tree. It's also referenced in Matthew and in Revelation. So the host of heaven is the ice. The host of heaven, go back to Job 38, it's the hoary frost of heaven that's reserved against the day of battle and war. Why is it reserved against the day of battle and war? Because there will be no more world war. This is going to abolish all the armies of the world. This ice that's going to be falling down. And they're cognizant of this. They understand that. There's no need. It's irrelevant to fight against each other because the ice is going to be falling down. Isaiah 34 says, the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. He has utterly destroyed them and delivered them up to slaughter. See, this is the great thing. This is the thing that's going to happen. Job 38, 22. Hast thou entered into the treasures of the snow, or hast thou seen the treasures of the hail, which I have reserved against the time of trouble and against the day of battle and war? Now, let's talk a little bit about the sun stopping. Isaiah chapter 60. I think it's in 60. Or is it 61? Thy sun shall no more go down, or the sun. I don't think it's thy sun. The sun shall no more go down. That's verse 20. Neither shall the moon withdraw itself. So what's going to happen? It sounds like the sun is going to stop there, doesn't it? There's also another verse, I can't find it now, but it says the sun will be ashamed. Why will it be ashamed? Because it's going to be hiding behind the moon. So I'm foreseeing This is a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but November 13th, 14th eclipse over Australia. Will the sun stop? Will the moon stop? Will they align themselves up? So we have the sun on top of the moon over the continent of Australia. Will the sun cast a shadow, the moon shadow, on the ground? Will it? In the book of Zechariah, it talks about it, a day where it's actually not day nor night. Something's going to happen. Okay? Here's the glass sky, right? Here's the ice, right? Say the sun stops. Well, this area is protected, it's shaded, so it's not going to melt as quickly anyway. This ice that's going to fall down like figs off a fig tree. But after the ice falls, after it's all fallen down from the top of the glass sky, that's not the end of things, because if the sun is still stationary like that, it's still generating heat disproportionately. Just like if you're moving a magnifying glass over an area, or if you're moving a light source, or you're moving your finger across a candle flame, your finger doesn't get burned until it stops. If you stop the magnifying glass, if you stop the light source, that's when the heat starts. And there's also solar flares that could happen, which actually can magnify the intensity of the sun 7 times. Why 7 times? Well, Isaiah chapter 30 talks about the sun being 7 times as hot, and the moon being as it were daylight. So this can actually create heat that would burn up even the dark side of the earth when the sun stops, theoretically. So this area would be protected from the moon's shadow. And on Ayers Rock, that's where I'm proposing to build the new Zion, the new Jerusalem. This is where I believe the new kingdom is going to be established. The new kingdom. So we'll see what happens. Okay, well that's enough for now. I'm getting tired of talking.